Is that Amanda?
It is.
Hi,
You guys-
Amanda.
Hi, Amanda.
Okay, so we have
Hey, Gabe.
John.
Oh, there it goes. 3 already. Okay, now I'm going to mute.
Let's see. Welcome, everyone. So these are, for the next 90 minutes of your life, this is what we're going to be going over for the Meals Hill Public Meeting number 1. We're going to do some logistics on this Zoom webinar feature. It might be a little different than the Zoom meetings that you're used to attending. Okay, so today we're on a Zoom webinar. I'm going to introduce the project team. We're going to go over the project purpose. We're going to talk about the process that we're going through and the schedule. Talk about the project background. A huge bulk of what you'll hear tonight are the results of the survey, which I'm sure many of you took and participated in already. And then we'll have an interactive activity on some guiding principles for the project and what you might think about that. And then we'll have a question and answer session throughout the meeting, but then another one at the end. Okay, next slide, please, Bree. Okay, so this is the Zoom webinar. So the major thing that's different right now is that there's panelists on, which you can see all of us panelists, but you don't have the ability to have video tonight or to speak until maybe at the end. But there are a variety of ways with which you can communicate with us, okay? So there's 2 options for you at the bottom. You have a question and answer function where you can ask questions and we'll answer them. And we will get to those question and answers at a specific time during the presentation, all right? You also have the chat window, and you can chat with us by typing into the chat box. I would ask that if you have a question that you want answered, that you actually use the question and answer box to do that. If you have a comment or something that you want to be part of the public record, and you don't necessarily need a response to it, you just want us to know, you can put that in the chat box. The presentation is on the website if you're calling in, so you can access a copy of this presentation on the website. Let's see, pop-up blockers. We're going to be using a polling function tonight. If for some, and we're going to test that right now. And if for some reason you don't see the poll, you might need to disable your pop-up blockers on Zoom. Okay, so I'm going to do a test right now. First test. What will be your main course for Thanksgiving? Can you see the poll? Start voting, start voting. All right. About 5 more seconds. Okay. Does everybody have access to the polling? I'm going to share the results with you. Ding, ding, ding. 10 of you are having turkey, almost 60% of you. 1 of you is having tofu. 1 of you is having moose. 2 of you are having turducken. 3 others, maybe some flank steak, who knows? And no one's having ham. I can't believe that. No ham in the audience. All right. Okay, I'm gonna do this one more time. I'll be a little bit quicker about it this time. I just wanna give people a second chance to test this, okay? What color are your socks? Let's see if we can get more than. Okay, perfect. A couple more people found it in 3, 2, 1. Okay, looks like we're getting more comfortable with the polling tool. Okay, remember that. We are going to use this function later on again, okay? All right. Next thing, I want you all to test the the chat box. So tell me where you're calling in from today. Where are you calling in from? Are you in town? Are you at 10 Mile? Yep. Across the bridge? Up Mineral Creek, maybe? Cool. Okay, chat box is working. Okay, now the last thing is raising your hand. I want you to all test that. Raise your hand. Okay, there we go. We may use this at the end. We also may not. Okay. All right. Thank you for going through those things with me. I hope that it helped you be able to participate a little bit better. So we're going to do some quick introductions here because who the heck is yammering on at you right now? I'm going to pass it off to Nick first. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Nick Farland. I'm the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services Director here for the City of Valdez, and we're really excited to be talking with you all tonight in a little bit of a different format than normal, but really excited to get this project started and to have our whole consultant team on board for this public meeting.
So I'll go next. My name is Holly Spoth Torres. I own a very small landscape architecture and community engagement company, and I'm based out of Anchorage. It's called Huddle. And I have with me today my colleague, Bree Kiefer, and I'll let her introduce herself quickly.
Hi, yeah, like Holly said, my name is Bree Kiefer. I'm a landscape architect at Huddle, and I'm excited to work on this project.
Okay, I'm excited to introduce our colleagues from Parks and People. Go ahead, Katie and Hunter.
Hi, everyone. We are Katie and Hunter Holland. We are the founders and co-owners of Parks and People LLC. Our primary role in the Meals Hill Master Plan project is and will be through community engagement, specifically through the visitor and stakeholder surveys and interviews. So we're really excited to speak with all of you tonight and to share some of the results that we've gathered from those.
And last but not least, we have our trail experts, Gabe and Christine. Go ahead. You're on mute, friends.
Sorry about that. We were being so good with the mute and now unmute. So yeah, we're trails people, not computer people, although we can manage this. I'm Christine.
I'm Gabe.
And our business is Interior Trails. We're based in Healy, and we work all over the state, building and developing trail plans, doing construction, training, anything you can think of related to trails. And we spent all day on the site today, and we're really excited about the potential up there. So,
okay, and then Amanda. Amanda is last but not least. Go ahead, Amanda.
Yes, I'm Amanda Holtz. I am the lands manager and stewardship director at Great Land Trust. And Great Land Trust is the local, I guess, to South Central Alaska. We do conservation work throughout the whole South Central Alaska. We actually facilitated the purchase and conservation of the Mills Hill property, and we're excited to see how this property is developed while still meeting the conservation values that were protected, but are excited to be a part of this planning process. Thanks.
We also have an architect on the team, Brian Meisner, and he is on the team because he's also working on the Valdez Comprehensive Plan update, and it was important to us to have collaboration between those two teams. He's not here tonight, but he's part of this team as well. Okay, next slide, Bree, please. Okay, it's important to understand context here, and I just want everyone to understand where we are in the project schedule. So we are currently, the bulk of this project is in the listen and learn phase, and that's what we're talking about right now. project kickoff, stakeholder interviews, lots of data collection, site analysis. We've had some committee meetings and this public meeting number 1. We're going to wrap this up at the end of December, and then we'll start taking everything that we heard and learned, and we'll work that into some different concepts for what could happen on Meals Hill. And that will happen from November through March. After we do that, we'll take the concepts and we'll share them again. That'll be another public meeting. Actually, that'll be the 3rd public meeting. That'll happen in April and May. And then in June of 2021, we hope to have a final master plan that works through your local project approval processes. And then if all goes well, we can start building hopefully as early as June 2021, which is this coming next year, depending on what kind of projects surface. So it's a quick turnaround. That's the next approximately 8 months. Next slide, Bree. I'll pass it off to you, Bree.
All right. So before, like Holly said, a big part of this meeting is going to be sharing the survey results. But before we dive into that, we just want to go over the context of the project. So over the purpose, a little bit of the history. And I know a lot of you are very familiar with the history and the site itself. So we'll touch on those things for maybe some folks that aren't as familiar. And then we'll pass it off to Parks and People for survey results. And so to start, the project purpose for this master plan is really to, like Holly said, listen to you guys, listen to the community, and try to figure out what the best uses are for the site, what the best improvements are to meet those uses, and make sure that they're consistent with the conservation easement, and really find out what your vision and goals are. And then the master plan will not only guide the development, but we also want to take into account the long-term management as well. So for some historic context, the area surrounding Meals Hill was historically used by the Otna and Chugach people for hunting, trading, fishing. So it's likely that Meals Hill itself as a dominant feature on the coastline was used in that context as well. And then in the late 1800s, George Cheever Hazlett and Andrew Jackson Meals arrived in the area as part of the gold rush at the time and laid claim to the area that is now the modern day town site of Valdez. And their claim included around 700 acres of land. So it was a large homestead area. So their descendants eventually created the Port Valdez Company, which became an entity to manage those homestead lands. And so the Port Valdez Company was the owner of Meals Hill prior to it becoming under the current ownership of the city. And so the Port Valdez Company were the ones that worked with the Great Land Trust, as Amanda mentioned, in the process of transferring the land to the city and also establishing the conservation easement. And they worked with other community partners and agencies. And that funding came through the Exxon Valdez oil spill, also referred to as EVOS, trustee council funds. And the mission of EVOS is really to conserve and restore the injured conservation values that happened because of the Exxon oil spill. And those conservation values range from specific things like habitat, but also human needs such as recreation and scenic things that were injured in that process. So that's where the funding came from. And because Meals Hill does provide those conservation values, that's where that link comes between EVOS and the property itself. So like Amanda mentioned at the beginning, the Great Land Trust helped facilitate that process of the ownership changing and establishing the conservation easement. And the conservation easement is a legal document that's tied to the land in perpetuity. And it's really meant to outline what the possibilities can be for the site. But then at the same time, there are restricted uses and prohibited activities, but it does allow for things like passive recreation and improvements related to passive recreation. But some things to keep in mind in terms of what the conservation easement discourages are things that could conflict with those conservation values, such as one of the restricted uses is motorized use, hunting. Prohibited things include buildings of some indoor structure. So those are things we'll have to keep in mind as we develop the plans. And like I said before, I know a lot of people are pretty familiar with the site. And even if you haven't been on the site, it's such a dominant land feature so close to town. So it's very visually apparent. It has about a mile of rocky coastline along the water. It's right next to the harbor to the east and downtown Valdez. There is an existing road on the site that was developed when another project was in mind for the site. That did not work out, but the existing road does take you to the top where you get really scenic views, all the 360 views all the way around up to Mineral Creek, of the town, of the port. So the unique features of the site really lend itself to some interesting opportunities for recreation. And so I think that's what's going to be the exciting part about planning it moving forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Parks and People to dive into the survey results.
Thank you, Bri. We'll share our screen here. Okay, excellent. Is everybody seeing our screen? Thank you. Excellent. Well, it's great to be here. Again, our names are Dr. William Hunter.
And I'm Dr. Katie Holland.
And thank you for having us. We're really excited to share the findings from the community stakeholder survey as well as visitor survey, and additionally the interview process that we've been engaged in. To jump right into this, you may know, if you did participate in the community survey or in the surveyor interviews, that we asked a lot of information. So this evening, we will be giving you a snapshot of the information collected. The intentions behind collecting this information, as you've probably heard us say to you verbally or through written communication, is that it's to guide this development process, right? So we'll be providing the information we felt was most relevant for the presentation this evening. A short bit about the process we engaged in. You know, it started off with identifying themes, and these themes were in collaboration with the rest of the planning team as well as staff with the Valdez Parks, Recreation and Cultural Services Department. These themes included, there were 5 of them. They included what degree of support exists regarding the development of Mills Hill. Number 2, what, if any, is the significance of Mills Hill for stakeholders? 3, what are the desired uses of Mills Hill? Number 4, what are users' preferences in the development of Mills Hill? And then finally, number 5, what would short and long-term success look like in the development of Mills Hill? So to give you a short bit of this process that we utilized in order to investigate these themes, between September 14th and October 18th, a 5-week period, we utilized a range of methods in order to collect community members, visitors, and others' visions for this new park. During this time, we did a lot of things, right? It was a very practical or pragmatic method in order to meet stakeholders where they were. So a few things that were implemented. We used an electronic as well as hard copy survey. More than 2,000 informative postcards were mailed out throughout Valdez and the surrounding areas. There were radio broadcasts, there were printed advertisements. We did cold calls, we did structured phone interviews. We did an announcement at the 2020 SWAN Week of Wellness Symposium. I personally did in-class announcements at Prince William Sounds College. There were over 50 visitor organizations within Alaska and globally who did social media announcements. We gave away $10, $50 Visa gift cards as an incentive to get people to participate. And I could go on, right? We went over and beyond to make sure that we were meeting stakeholders as much as we possibly could, and also in a COVID world at the same time. We're excited to share with you this evening that we feel as though your voices were heard and your visions were shared. So we would like to stop for a moment and say thank you for your investment into the survey and these interviews. Your invested effort has already and will continue to contribute to the successful development of Mills Hill, as well as the future management of this park for the community of Valdez. At the completion of our collection period, and then also followed by a very short cleaning process to identify missing or unreliable data, we collected 428 surveys. Now, these included 352 community stakeholders and 76 visitors. We additionally conducted 24 formal interviews. Now, this was 16 community stakeholders and 8 formal interviews with representatives, from visitor agencies. In addition to this, there were informal conversations and forms of communication that happened throughout the community and surrounding areas. But for the purpose of this presentation, we'll focus specifically on the data captured right here in the surveys and interviews this evening. Now, real quick, we're going to get into the weeds here now. So you will notice in the top left corner, in the top left corner that it states community stakeholder data. What this is stating is that on each slide from this point on, this will tell you specifically what data is being included in the outcomes or the values that we're discussing on each slide. So we were very interested in what degree of support existed within the community or community stakeholders for the development of Mills Hill as a park. Community stakeholders indicated a strong degree of support for the development of Mills Hill for non-motorized recreational opportunities. That's 73% of community stakeholders. 18% support the improvement of existing infrastructure. And then finally, 9% do not support any development of Mills Hill and would like for it to be left as is.
So one of the most interesting questions that we asked stakeholders was for them to explain the significance of Mills Hill. And we did this in 2 ways. We first asked, what's the significance of Mills Hill from your perspective as a stakeholder? And then we asked, what is the significance of Mills Hill, in your opinion, for the city of Valdez? And as we gathered these responses, if you took the survey, you may or may not remember, these were open-ended responses. So we read through everybody's and we grouped them based on themes that we saw coming out for both personal significance and for significance for the city of Valdez. And what came across was an exciting vision for a very accessible, nature-based park that could really contribute to the essence of Valdez, enhancing what's there and really highlighting some of the magnificent features of Valdez. These quotes here: accessible nature-based recreation opportunities within close proximity to town and potential to support our unique Valdez identity. These were themes that came up again and again. Other important categories of themes that came out of the significance, and these were both for personal and for the city of Valdez, was that Mills Hill provides novel and plentiful scenic views. And even in iconic Alaskan destinations, there's something really, really powerful about Mills Hill, and stakeholders made that very clear in their responses, that is the significance here, that piece, that scenic views that are available at Mills Hill is very important to them and to the city. Proximity to the town and to the water, the natural setting rich with flora and fauna, specifically the trees that are available at Mills Hill, that you have this essence of wilderness right close to town. That's very significant. Opportunities for moderate and easy difficulty recreation. That was important for people who are interested in having this nearby nature-based recreation opportunity. Seasonal foraging came across as a significance, mostly as a personal significance. And then, as Bree described earlier, there's historical significance to Mills Hill that so many of you are so deeply familiar with. And that came across as well. And it was important to see that historical significance came through both on a personal level and as people were thinking about the broader city of Valdez itself. So we asked stakeholders what their desired uses were for Meals Hill, and we did this in a couple of different ways. The first, this orange arrow that you see on the screen, we asked all respondents to rank their development priorities. And by far the top priority across the board for stakeholders was community access. And we know from speaking with so many of you and from looking at survey results that many people are very familiar with Meals Hill and use it. And continued community access and more access is very important in the development. And so that was wonderful to see. We're excited to translate that into development plans. Conservation also came across as a priority for development. Again, because of the significance of Meals Hill from the point of view of being able to access these iconic scenic views and also feel the wilderness so close to home, conservation of those things is very important to stakeholders. Education and tourist access were somewhere in the middle, both of those, some importance, but most stakeholders ranked those somewhere in the middle. And then notably, economic gain was ranked lowest consistently for stakeholders. And of course, everyone loves economic gain, but it was clear that that is not a priority of development for stakeholders from their personal points of view for development priorities. We also asked in terms of desired uses, which recreational activities people are most excited about participating in on Meals Hill. And the ones that you see here were the most commonly listed. Hiking was by far the highest. 73% of stakeholders who responded to the survey indicated that they're excited they would like to hike at Meals Hill. Nature viewing, snowshoeing, wildlife viewing, and then half of stakeholders responded that they would be interested in mountain biking opportunities on Meals Hill.
Okay, excellent. So it's to dig a little further, right? Beyond what are the desired uses, but in addition, what are the preferences that would lead to the ideal development of Meals Hill as a park? There were a breadth of preferences indicated by community stakeholders. Those most frequently indicated are included on the screen here. And so we'll quickly go through a few of these, right? Opportunities to freely explore. It was very evident that Alaskans love clean, accessible, well-maintained trails, but also want to feel empowered to be able to step off of that trail and experience nature intimately. They want to avoid overcrowding and have opportunities for solitude when accessing and utilizing Meals Hill. Connectivity to existing trails. Now, this could be either Mineral Creek, or it could lead to the next bullet point that you're seeing here, connectivity to the town. So opportunities for a foot trail that would lead users to pre-existing infrastructure within the community. I'll jump ahead and not go over these or read every single one, but some more notable ones would be accessible opportunities, both for families who want to participate with children, even if that's, pushing a stroller and having accessible trails to do that, or those individuals or participants of varying physical abilities. And then consideration for wildlife habitats. Primarily, there were a range, but primarily bears, eagles, among others, and then emergency response. Community stakeholders are very aware of some of the hazardous terrain that's included or characterized by Meals Hill and want to know that users will have emergency response considerations in plan. We additionally asked community stakeholders specifically park elements that they would identify as being important to the successful development. Now, trash and recycling bins were very frequently indicated, and this is a theme that came out that users of recreation areas and trails maintained by the Valdez Parks Recreation and Cultural Services have had a concern with users leaving behind trash, dog waste on certain areas. And frequently that happens after hours when individuals feel as though those users probably shouldn't be on that property anyway. So the presence of trash and recycling bins is important. Diversity of trail design, moderate and short length opportunities so that they can go there on a time crunch. And then also loop trails. Users don't want to walk on the road, and they don't want to have to backtrack to be able to go out and access and have a fun recreational experience. A few others here, places to rest, preferably at scenic overview looks, And then physically inclusive options, right? So perhaps that would be an option for users to see a scenic overview down at the waterfront, as well as when accessing the top of Mills Hill. Now, knowing that these preferences exist, how do we utilize these preferences to lead to the successful development of Mills Hill as a park, right? So keep in mind that this data is intended to be utilized in developing a master plan. Well, here are some of the things identified by community stakeholders as what successful development would look like. I will focus on one of these in order to be respectful of time. I'll focus on the third bullet of solitude. Solitude was indicated as being associated with a high degree of enjoyment when accessing Mills Hill and recreating on Valdez trails. So what would this look like in successful development? Well, it'd be distribution of users, right? Making sure that there's not one summit or one novel experience. Most likely, that might be accessing the top of Mills Hill, but rather that users can be distributed and vein off of the main road and still experience a sense of solitude when accessing Mills Hill. We additionally asked community stakeholders what concerns they hold regarding the development of Mills Hill as a park. And thank you very much. The stakeholders indicated a range, a broad breadth of concerns. Those most frequently indicated, we were categorized within 3 groups. 74% of community stakeholders indicated concerns that would fall within the category of sustainability. And examples that would be within that include concerns about maintenance cost. What it's going to cost to maintain this park in the short and long term. Another concern was motorized users accessing the property. There's a concern that although there are restrictions on the development of this property currently, that how are those restrictions going to be enforced long term to make sure that motorized users don't access the property? And then prioritizing the visions or demands of visitors, perhaps over community members. The second most frequently indicated concern category is titled ecological, with 48% of community stakeholders. Examples within that would be concerns about environmental degradation of the property, fire hazards. This could come from, say, perhaps overnight campers accessing the property, and then disturbing animal habitats. The third most frequently indicated concern category, is users, with 34%. We've already covered this pretty extensively, so I'll go quickly through it. But users leaving behind trash or dog waste. Also, both users whose their residence is close to Mills Hill, as well as users who just want to occasionally recreate there, losing the sense of solitude. And then noise, the noisescape associated with users. And then other concerns were voiced as well. These include things such as the city going over budget, human-wildlife interactions, primarily bears, and then a lack of single-use opportunities, such as recreationists who prioritize mountain biking.
So if you'll notice now, left-hand corner of the screen, we're shifting gears to talk about the visitor data. So through the survey, we were able to collect data from stakeholders and also from visitors. And we were able to access people who have visited Valdez in the past, who maybe were familiar with the area and could speak to kind of what they would have enjoyed or maybe will enjoy in the future. And also people who intend to visit Valdez in the future. And given the limitations to tourism from COVID right now, that was really important. So people who have an interest in visiting Valdez in the future are included in this voice. So we asked visitors to explain in general, so not specific to Valdez, but in general, when they're traveling and they're accessing nature-based recreation opportunities, what barriers do they experience? The top 3 that we heard here were transportation to the nature-based area, access to information about it, so simply knowing where to go and what you might find there, and then time restrictions on their travel. So nature-based recreation opportunities are often thought of as taking up a large chunk of time and not having that time to dedicate to that. Well, the great news for development of Mills Hill is that just in its nature, it will address these 3 barriers that were expressed by visitors. So that's great. It has the potential to really serve visitors who are coming to Valdez. Other barriers that were mentioned included a lack of cost-effective opportunities, also really a space that Mills Hill can fill, a lack of loop trails, and loop trails came up as important to stakeholders as well. The difference is there with visitors. I think in a new place, when you're unfamiliar, there's a sense of comfort that comes with a loop trail. You don't have to necessarily be concerned with your navigation if you know that you're going in a loop. Barriers included trails that require you to walk or hike on roads and other small details like that. All of them were things that Meals Hill, as I said, by its essence, can address a lot of these barriers, which is exciting. We also asked visitors, both past and future, to explain their motivations for participating in nature-based recreation while they travel. So not specifically why they're interested in nature-based recreation in their day-to-day lives, but while they're in a destination that they've traveled to, what are their most motivations for participating? They mentioned opportunities for scenic views, easy access to trails, chances for seeing wildlife, quick recreational opportunities, and clear signage and information. So looking at these, if you look at numbers 1, 2, and 4, Meals Hill can immediately meet those needs, and it will be developed in a way to preserve those things, because that's the voice that we're hearing strongly from stakeholders and from visitors too. Chances of seeing wildlife and clear signage and information, those are things that in the development process, we'll have to make sure that we can communicate about. So while there's wildlife there, if you're not from Valdez, if you're a visitor to the area, it's going to be important to communicate what those opportunities may be. Whether or not you actually encounter any wildlife is not the important thing, but for visitors to the area, just knowing that they have the opportunity to maybe see wildlife is a draw to nature-based recreation. So during our interview process, we spoke to representatives from different visitor agencies, and we gained more information from their perspective about how the development of Meals Hill could best serve their agencies. Across the board, every single representative said that Meals Hill can serve as an attraction for diverse visitors. And let me unpack it a little bit. They're speaking about diversity in terms of demographics of visitors and activities that they may be interested in, different levels of comfort with recreational activities, but also how visitors are accessing Valdez. So not designing a nature-based recreational opportunity that will only serve visitors coming from cruise ships, but rather thinking about all the different ways that visitors are accessing Valdez by land, in RVs, by personal vessels, and making sure that Meals Hill is developed in a way that it will serve all of these visitors. We've already touched on the second one, providing accessible outdoor recreational opportunities. 63% of the representatives we interviewed also mentioned that. And then designing connectivity to existing infrastructure also came up. My mind immediately with this goes to physical infrastructure, so connecting to the town. And we've talked about how the proximity of Meals Hill to Valdez is such an asset, but also in the non-tangible ways. So thinking about connecting via information. So for example, if a visitor were to come to Valdez and visit the museum, is there information there that connects them to nature-based opportunities that they couldn't have at Meals Hill? And that'll be important in developing a strong presence of Meals Hill in visitor agendas as they visit the area. So what was really interesting, as Hunter brought up when he was speaking about the concerns of stakeholders had a concern that visitor visions may be prioritized in the development over their own. And that's something that we want to be very intentional about sharing with the team as we move forward. But the great thing about our data is that it really shows that stakeholders and visitors are on the same page, that a lot of the visions that these two groups have really correspond well and support each other. And some of the things here are just a few examples of that, and most of them we've discussed. Environmentally conscious planning and management, that's going to attract visitors to Meals Hill. It's also going to be something that maintains the significance for the community. Connectivity to existing opportunities in town, opportunities to experience a near natural setting. Again, that idea that you could experience a wilderness feeling so close to town checks off so many of the boxes for both stakeholders and visitors in wanting to use this area. Inclusion of interpretive and historical park elements. important both for the identity of Valdez, for the community, but also for visitors for wanting to learn about the area where they are. Clear and plentiful access to information, again, both on site, but also through town at other visitor destinations so that you're creating a connected experience for visitors to Valdez. The wildlife viewing, easy to moderate difficulty of recreational opportunities, and then again, consideration of accessibility and emergency response came up with both groups. So we're really on the same page here moving forward with a lot of really valuable visions from both stakeholders and visitors. So as Hunter mentioned earlier in the presentation, what we've shared here is a snapshot. They're pieces that we thought would be of particular interest. If you took the survey, you know there were a lot of questions there. These are just a few of the other areas that we investigated, and we've done a lot of different types of analysis with the data to really hone in on these different topics. And the purpose of our role here was to gather information, to hear the voices of stakeholders and visitors to inform the development and the planning of this process as we move forward. And so these are all areas that are included in that and that the team is communicating about and will be using as we move forward. And we're happy to discuss any of them as we move forward as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so at this point, thank you doctors so much. At this point, I want to open it. We've thrown a lot of information at you. And I'm thinking that some of you may have some questions about the things that you've heard. So this is the first opportunity where I want you to use the question and answer tool, if in fact you do have questions. I'm wondering if you might have questions about the data that was collected, or some of the answers, or maybe you answered something and you didn't hear us talk about it. Do you have any questions? And I'll give you a couple minutes. Well, maybe not that long. Great question. Okay, so we have one question. And so the way this is going to work, I like to have a verbal answer, but I'm also going to have a written answer as well. Okay, so someone asks where we can see the full survey results. And at the end, soon, I don't know a specific date right now, but we can provide all the survey results at mealshillmasterplan.com. And my colleague Michelle is going to type that in the chat box so that you have access to the website from the chat box. So not only can you see the full survey results and you can dig into all those details all on your own, those will be available on the website, but there'll also be an executive summary that kind of summarizes all of Hunter and Katie's data. We'll also have an existing conditions summary report. So all the investigations that we're doing about land use, about soils, about access, about vegetation, all that information will be available there too. When that's available on the website, we'll let you know. Okay. All right. Another question. Okay. Second question. This is probably jumping ahead a few steps, but that's okay, I'll allow it. I'm most interested in connecting the Meals Hill trails to the Mineral Creek trails. Has this been discussed? I am going to have Christine and Gabe answer this question briefly.
The shortest possible answer is yes, that has been discussed. We've been really eagerly awaiting the survey results too, because from a trail design perspective, there are so many incredible options on Meals Hill. We're pretty excited about it, but we want to design trails that you as a community want designed. So we've been waiting to hear kind of what the interest of the community is, and connectivity that message about connectivity has come through loud and clear. So we will definitely keep talking about ways to connect.
Thank you, Gabe.
Hi, Holly. Would it be possible for me to just tack on something? in response?
Sure, briefly, please.
Yeah, very briefly. Andy, thank you for the question. Something we also addressed in our survey was specifically where are people getting their needs fixed currently in Valdez, outside of Mills Hill. Mineral Creek was by far the leading recreational opportunity in regards to trails. So we asked not specifically, what is it about Mineral Creek Trail that you're so intrigued by? What is so satisfying about that experience? And from that data, without jumping into it, that data will then guide the development of Mills Hill so that we, the experience is held on Mineral Creek. We can utilize that as a tool moving forward. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to go to another question. You mentioned a road was built in the Mills Hill area years ago. Why did it fail? And what are we doing differently so that history doesn't repeat itself? I'm going to let Nick answer this question. Do you want to get this one, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Holly. And thank you, Benjamin, for the question. So there's a little bit of history behind that road, as Bria is alluding to, but the shortest answer I can give is that the intended purpose wasn't fulfilled, and it's changed. And now we've got this really great access point to the hill. And so I think from this point forward, we're looking at being able to build off of that hill, or build off of that road, because now it offers us a different purpose than what was intended. So now that we've got the conservation easement and we know that there's going to be some trail system up there, that can be a great opportunity for us to use as kind of a building block for the trail system.
Thank you. Okay, here's one question. Has there been any consideration to link the museum historic information to the Mills Hill project? And I'll answer that one. This one came in through the chat. The answer is yes. We have one kind of informal conversation we've had already is with the museum staff. And I think that there's great opportunities for the museum to be able to expand their programming and the Parks and Recreation Department to be able to provide a place for that to happen. So the answer is yes. I think the combination of both resources is inevitable and beneficial to everyone. Okay, another one. Would the city encourage or be interested in a mountain bike specific trail in a mountain bike specific trail building volunteer group in the future? And I'm going to pass this one to Nick. This is about, a potential public-private partnership with a volunteer group.
Thank you, Holly, and thank you, Hannah, for the question. Absolutely. We're always looking to partner with volunteer groups and talk about, ways we can get the community engaged. And anytime we have these type of groups that are involved within our Parks Department, there really is there's a sense of ownership that comes out of that from the community. So absolutely, we would encourage some of those conversations. And I think part of this question should be brought up again throughout this process as we look at what type of trails are going to be built and what areas are going to be designated as single use or if they're mixed use trails. So yeah, we'll look forward to talking in the future.
Can I jump in really quickly with that issue as well? I would say as trail designers, one of the most encouraging things that leads us to want to suggest trail purpose-built mountain bike design is knowing that there's an investor user group. Mountain bike trails, because of certain characteristics, can sometimes be a little bit more maintenance intensive. And so knowing that there is a invested user group that intends to really pick up the slack with that and help the city have it not become a burden is a huge plus. So if there are people interested in that kind of thing and want to organize and make that known, that makes that jump a higher priority from the designing perspective, knowing that that's going to be something people are going to take on.
Hunter, this one's going to be for you. Were there any questions about the current ski grooming of the trails? Because this seems quite popular for improving access.
Yes, and thank you for providing me with this question. Thank you, Andy. There were questions. And so specifically regarding ski grooming and in regards to Mills Hill, there were several. There is a high demand for skiing and snowshoeing opportunities seasonally there on Mills Hill. People hold a lot of value. They're very grateful for the grooming that's happening historically on the property. There's additionally issues with trail etiquette associated with skiing and grooming of trails on Mills Hill. And that is things such as different user groups, such as pet owners, or perhaps people just post-holing, hiking, snowshoeing, going over ski tracks, and those things would like to be addressed. And so how were those things suggested to be addressed? It was primarily through interpretation and educational information on the trails, right? Informing people of who are the users accessing this property and what does proper trail etiquette look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Hunter. Okay. Any more questions? You sure? Okay. It's not your last chance. You can ask. Okay, I knew it. There's always one more. Are there any plans to access Mills Hill via vehicles? And I think I'm gonna give this one to both Bree and Hunter, because I think somebody asked me what was one of the most surprising things you learned about the survey. But I'll let Bree start this briefly and then Hunter can follow up.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would say that coming into this project and then coming into the survey and stakeholder interviews, which Hunter can expand on, we had no preconceived notion on whether a vehicle should be allowed. You know, at some point there does need to be some type of access. So maybe the results would have led to the potential for vehicles. But from what I'm seeing from the survey is that there isn't a priority to have vehicles access the site. So not that there's a specific plan to or not to at this point. We're still going to dive into that. But from just looking at the results, there wasn't a high demand for vehicle access, whether that's just to a parking lot or something along those lines. Hunter, do you want to expand on that?
Thank you, Bree. I'll just say a short bit about that. Actually, with reference to the importance of specific park elements, a parking lot, thus associated with car or vehicle access in the property, was indicated very unimportant, or it was not indicated as being an important park element. Further, via interviews with community stakeholders, the police department and animal response were two community stakeholder groups who indicated that there needs to be some sort of vehicle access in order for risk management response. And that was basically it. Thank you.
Thank you for that question very much. Important topic. Okay. Another important question. I've heard that Mills Hill may hold a sacred significance for our Alaska Native community members. Has there been any further conversation or follow-up on this? I'm going to start answering this by saying that in addition to public meetings, we've also formed a more focused planning committee. We're calling it the Mills Hill Planning Committee. And the Mills Hill Planning Committee includes a representative from the local tribe, and she's been participating in the process and has some amazing ideas on how we can develop the Alaska Native cultural identity of the site and add that to its significance. So we have an active member in the committee, and it's been really amazing to collaborate. I guess I'll ask Hunter to follow up a little bit more to maybe pull anything out of the survey that might have been gleaned from this topic.
Thank you, Holly. Specifically, Alaskan Native community members, unfortunately, there was very little data or input from community stakeholders and visitors on this area. However, from some of the family or the heritage that's associated with the history of Mills Hill, there has been communication about a desire to have some of that historical significance present on the property. And that's been recommended in adaptable ways, right? So it's not necessarily just a statue or a plaque, but rather opportunities for users to be informed and educated about the history in that manner.
Thank you for that question. Okay. What do you think, Bree? Do you want to move on?
Yeah, we could get started on the polling.
Okay, you'll have more chances to ask questions later, but now we'll move into a little bit of polling. So get your polling voting tools out. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Bree. Oh, Hunter,
All
could
right.
you stop sharing your screen and then Bree will start sharing hers.
Okay. Okay. So now that we have the survey results and the results from the stakeholder interviews, we're going to be moving the project forward towards draft concepts where we're looking at those results, the specific uses, the specific preferences, and laying them out on the site in a way that makes sense. And then we're going to come back to you guys and in the form of another public meeting, present those concepts, and that's going to lead us to a final master plan. So those are the steps shown down here. But one of the things that we want to get out of the meeting tonight is what's called some guiding principle statements. And really, the purpose of these statements is that they take a step back from the specifics of the survey, and they're a way for us to summarize what we think we heard. And so we're going to present those to you, and the goal really is for everyone to either vote yes or no to each statement as a way of really saying, yes, that statement represents my vision for Mills Hill, or no, it doesn't. And so that helps us, listen again and make sure we heard you correctly through the survey and interviews. So just to reiterate what we're calling guiding principles, they summarize the survey results into statements. They're general statements of intent, and they set the tone for the master plan. And then they'll help guide our planning decisions. And they'll be used in a combination with the specifics of the survey results to develop the concepts. And so at the very beginning of Hunter and Katie's presentation, they talked about 5 themes that came out of the survey. So that's what we used to come up with the guiding principles. So the 5 themes that came out of the survey results included, and Hunter did speak to this at the beginning, but I'll just reiterate it. The first theme was degree of support. The second was significance. The third, desired uses. The fourth, preferences. And then the fifth, long-term success. So for each of these, we came up with a guiding principle, which we think captured the survey results into a statement. And so as we go through each one, you guys are all going to have a chance to vote yes or no. And again, yes means this reflects my vision for Mills Hill, and no means it doesn't. And maybe we'll dig into that a little more at the end if we have some time for question and answers. But Holly, do you want to start with the first one?
Ready.
All right, theme 1, degree of support. The Valdez community supports the development of Mills Hill with nature-based recreation amenities while conserving habitat. Does this statement reflect your vision for Mills Hill? That combination of nature-based recreation, and conservation.
Okay. Get your polling tools out. Keep them coming. We'll give you about 5 more seconds. Okay, I'm going to click end. Oh, another one squeaked in. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to reiterate, the Valdez community supports the development of Meals Hill with nature-based recreation amenities while conserving habitat. 20 out of 24 of you said yes. So 4 of you didn't vote. So maybe you have mixed feelings, I don't know. And none of you said no. Okay, I have a comment in the question and answer, and I just want to bring it up now. Sorry, I forgot to share the results. Come on, team, help me with that. All right. The comment is there is no unsure button. So if you feel unsure, we've been specific about giving you a yes or a no choice here, but if you do feel unsure, please don't hesitate to tell us why. And you can do that in the chat box or in the question and answer box. We've been deliberate about that, but again, we want you to tell us why if you're unsure. So thank you. Okay, moving on to the next one, Bree, go ahead.
All right, theme 2, significance. Meals Hill is an iconic landmark that helps shape the public image of the city and reflects the existing and future culture of the community. So this gets back to the themes that Katie and Hunter were talking about as Meals Hill as a significant piece of not only a recreation amenity, but could be an amazing piece to the culture of the city and what it has to offer. Does this statement reflect your vision for Meals Hill?
Okay. Got about 5 more seconds. Okay. I'll just say it again. Meals Hill is an iconic landmark that helps shape the public image of the city and reflects the existing and future culture of the community. 20 people voted on this one. 16 say yes, and 4 say no. I guess I'm interested in the 4 people that said no. If you want to share why, we'd be happy to understand that in the chat box. Okay, Bree. Starting the third one for you.
Theme 3, desired uses. This is like the bulk of the project. What are we going to use Meals Hill for? Okay, the Meals Hill plan prioritizes community access for a range of year-round nature-based recreation activities, inclusive of varying user abilities. So what we were really trying to touch on here is that we would provide a range of year-round options and that it would be inclusive of varying abilities. So it's not just only a bike park for extreme users. There's some variety, and that was the goal that we were trying to capture in that guiding principle. So does that mirror your vision?
Okay, I'll give you about 10 more seconds. Keep them coming. Okay. Tw 20 people voted on this one, and all of you have said yes, that the Meals Hill plan, that you agree with this statement, that the Meals Hill plan prioritizes community access for a range of year-round nature-based recreation activities, inclusive of varying user abilities. Okay,
Great.
2 more.
All
Ready,
right.
Bree?
Yeah. Okay. Theme 4, preferences. Meals Hill is easily navigated through clear signage while emphasizing opportunities for solitude and engagement with a wilderness environment. So I felt like Hunter spoke some of those keywords several times in the results. Solitude was key. So creating environments where people can feel like they're in a wilderness environment, and then making sure it's navigable with clear signage. So those were the key things we were trying to capture there. Does that mimic your vision?
Okay. We'll give you about 5 more seconds. All right, I'm going to end. Okay. 21 people voted, 19 agree, and 2 do not. Meals Hill is easily navigated through clear signage while emphasizing opportunities for solitude and engagement with a wilderness environment. Okay. All right, I'm getting some more specific comments in the chat box on things that may or may not have rung clear to you, and I really appreciate that. Someone says, I would also like to add opportunity for community engagement. And another comment on number 2. So thank you for adding things to the chat box. Okay, we're gonna move on to the last one.
All right, the last one is for long-term success. Meals Hill is responsibly developed with a long-term phased plan for sustainable maintenance and management. The plan is oriented towards advancing the quality of life and experiences Valdez has to offer. Does that reflect your vision for Meals Hill?
Okay, we'll give you about 5 more seconds. Okay. Again, 20 of you voted, and we're all in the yes category on this one. Thank you. This gives us an indication of where taking all this information and distilling it into tools that we can use for planning. And this tells us areas where, you know, we may have not got it 100% correct. So we'll investigate a little bit deeper. But thank you very much for that.
Holly, I'm
Okay,
seeing
Bree.
2 more. Sorry, I'm seeing 2 more come in on the chat too.
Thanks. Thanks, Christine. Okay, go ahead, Bree.
All right, looking back at the chat, there looks like there's maybe a question about number 2, asking what shaping the public image is. And I'll touch on it briefly, and then maybe Hunter, you can expand from the survey results. Shaping the public image would be, you know, Meals Hill becomes somewhat of a landmark for maybe people coming to Valdez. They come to Valdez and say, I want to go to Meals Hill. But Hunter, could you expand on that a little bit in terms of the survey and stakeholder interview results?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity. You're absolutely right. It actually means a lot of stuff. So it is an umbrella term here. It does refer to the fact that one of the questions was, we asked the proximity of residential addresses in reference to Mills Hill. And you quickly find that a large percentage of the sample for community stakeholders are almost within walking distance, if not under a 3-minute drive of Mills Hill. And so it's an integral part of a life, day-to-day life, whether or not individuals are utilizing it on a daily basis. It additionally came from interviews with community stakeholders. We talked to individuals from different employment industries, such as health and human services at the hospital. We talked to individuals within working for extraction industries. And we quickly learned that, and often these industries have a hard time recruiting people to come to Valdez, and they need something additional to get employees to come into the city, right? So take the hospital, for instance, they're looking for something external of the employment to be a recruiting factor. And so they thought that Mills Hill could be one of those factors, right? It could be a vision of Mills Hill as an active lifestyle in which you have lunch break opportunities to go access a trail while you eat lunch and then get back to work quickly, right? Thank you very much.
Okay. Go ahead, Bree.
Yeah, there's some great comments here. I'm just scrolling through to make sure
So
we capture them all.
we'll get to all the comments and questions. Let's make sure we make it through the presentation first, and we'll get to the question
Oh
and
yeah,
answer.
we can jump back. We'll jump back to the questions on the results. All right. Do you want to talk through next steps first before we go into questions?
No, let's have an official question and answer period now. So now that you've heard everything that we've talked about so far, including the guiding principles, you must have more questions. So if you have questions you want us to answer, please use the Q&A tool. If you just have things you want us to tell us that you make sure we consider, you can put that in the chat box. So more questions. What do you got for us? I think I'll dive into what's next while you think of the questions you want to ask us. Because maybe the question you want to ask is what's next? Do you have the next slide, Bree? Okay. We have 15 minutes left, so I want to make sure that you get all your questions answered. So here we are, public meeting tonight. It's the first time we've had a public meeting. Tomorrow we'll meet with the planning committee one more time while we're here. So we're going to take all this information that we heard tonight, including and synthesize all the survey data, which is fresh off the press, and we're going to develop a range of concepts. It could be 2, it could be 3 different concepts. And we'll come back in February for another public meeting to present those things to you then. Because I know people are itching to know, right? You want to see a map, you want to know what's going to happen where, you want to start talking details. So that will be the February meeting. We'll start looking at maps, we'll start talking to maps. And then you'll let us know what you think about the different alternatives that we present. So we'll listen to what you say at that time. We'll come up with potentially a preferred alternative, and we'll come and present the full draft master plan back in April, okay? And then again, like I said, in May and June, the final master plan will start moving through your local approval processes. And by June of 2021, you'll have a final master plan. Okay, I have a question here. Would there be an option for motorized access to the top of Mills Hill for mobility challenged people? Bree, do you want to start this one? Go ahead.
Yeah. Great question. Something that did come up in the survey results was definitely an opportunity for varying levels of accessibility. And so although motorized recreation is not allowed with the conservation easement, we do want to look into ways we can create accessible experiences on the site, because that was a priority that came out of the survey results. So, we will look for ways of addressing that alternative to the possibility of motorized recreation. But great question. We do want to look for those accessible opportunities.
Okay, we have a question in the chat box. Okay. Okay, this one is going to be for you, Nick. Ready? Will the committee address the Port Valdez Company sales agreement stipulation to honor their founders and the founders of Valdez?
Yeah, thank you all, and thank you very much for the question, John. Absolutely. we have every intention of making that a part of the plan. And I think that that particular piece is one that's going to come together as this plan takes shape. So we can go ahead and have some recommendations for that are built into the master plan that we can bring forward to council and to see what exactly that looks like. But in short, absolutely, we're excited to honor the founders and the founders of Valdez and what exactly that looks like. I'm excited to flesh that out and see what exactly that means. If that's a plaque at the beginning, a statue, or if that's some trail signage, a trail name. What that looks like, I think, is one of the cool parts of this process.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, Hunter, this is gonna be for you. There is currently no winter camping opportunity in Valdez. Is this a consideration on Meals Hill? And I guess I'd like you to speak to anything about camping that may have come up during the survey.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Holly. And Robin, thank you for your question. I can only speak from the data, right? And so that's all I can do. And it's that community stakeholders actually strongly indicated a desire not to allow overnight camping on Mills Hill. Now, I could go further, and from interviews, I could state, why is that? Why is there such a strong indication of tension in regards to campers? Well, it's most frequently came up associated with fire hazards, trash being left behind by users overnight, and then additionally noise. Thank you.
Thanks, Hunter. Okay. Okay. Another question. Do you have a plan to maintain a uniquely Alaskan experience, not apparently too overdeveloped or controlled for locals and visitors? I guess I'll take a stab at this and then I'll ask the panelists if they want to pile on. So there's a couple of things that will happen as a result of this master plan. So not only will we develop concepts for the design of trails and the design of features that happen on Meals Hill, but it's also our intention to provide the Parks and Recreation Department with some management guidelines as well. So in my opinion, the combination, a uniquely Alaskan experience is a combination of what's there and how you manage it. And so this plan is definitely intending to do both of those things. Does anyone else want to pile on to that? Okay, thank you. Another question. Will the Port Valdez interests be worked with the museum? Nick, I'll have you answer this one.
Great, thanks, Holly, and thank you for the question. Yeah, we've already had some beginning conversations and suggestions on what the role would be with the museum, and particularly I think there's a natural fit because the Port of Valdez company has so much history, and as our previous question a couple back from John indicated, really honoring those founders. I think there's a real natural relationship and connection between the museum and the Port of Valdez company and how that looks like with Meals Hill. And I think that there's some opportunities to have some flow or maybe some connectivity. And I know that's been part of one of the major themes or outcomes of the survey was this connectivity about trails, but also to the town and the community. So I do anticipate that we'll continue to have some conversations about what connectivity looks like back into town and to the museum. And so I think that there's some real natural connection there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I chime in really briefly on that?
Sure.
We are definitely thinking about the trails as kind of a outdoor classroom components. And so I think as we get closer to concepts developed, we'll be wanting to reach out to a number of different educational partners to figure out how signage and interp can dovetail with the interests of museums, schools, community groups, etc.
All right. Any final questions? Okay. I think I would like to hand it to Nick just to have a couple of final words.
Thank you, Holly. And I want to start by thanking the whole panel for joining us tonight. I know you're joining us from all over the state and in the country, and so it's a late night for some of us, but really appreciate all your hard work on this. And these, it's I think it's a testament to the community and those of all who have been here on this chat that there's such engagement and such feedback on this, and that's going to make this plan be that much better. That it does have all that community input, and so we thank you for being here tonight. And our work has really just started. The survey gives us that direction and that input, and now it's time for us to really try to put that and get a product out there. So we're excited. We thank you for your input. Again, I'm sure Holly's going to go over this, but share, if anybody wasn't able to join this meeting tonight, this presentation will be up on the website. You're going to have an opportunity to come in person tomorrow, 5 o'clock. You can come and talk with some of the team if you didn't get a chance to have any questions that you kind of percolate overnight. So we'll look forward to continuing to work with the community and make this really special. So thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank you. We have another question. I don't know, maybe I'll pass this one to Gabe and Christine. I bet you have opinions on this, right? This is the question. Is pack in, pack out more effective than trash cans? And I'm assuming the root of this is about infrastructure and long-term maintenance and operations. Who's going to empty the trash can, that sort of thing. So I'll let Gabe and Christine answer this one quickly.
That's a great question. And it gets at one thing that we're thinking about a lot with this parcel, which is how to kind of develop it with the intention of being kind of a small W wilderness. So almost like a wilderness training ground where we're introducing some of the concepts for independent travel and levels of risk and people getting to kind of practice being in a remote area with less of the stakes that are in the more further flung areas. So I think there definitely could be a component with the trash management that is doing both in your question. So we're having trash cans available for people. If you don't have any, you end up with trash. That's just the sad fact of the human world. But I think it would be a great idea to do kind of a campaign alongside of that says, here's what Leave No Trace is about, and here's what Pack It In, Pack It Out can be. And this is how you would do it if you were in a more remote area. So dovetail those together so that there's a trash receptacle in place at a trailhead, but that also the ethos of what does it mean to travel in small W wilderness is getting pushed right from the outset, and that may be able to take a little bit of the burden off of the city maintenance. Good question. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so in closing, like Nick said, if you want to stop by and talk to someone with the mask on, 5 to 6 p.m. at the Civic Center tomorrow. We'll be presenting, Hunter will be, and Katie will be presenting a brief snippet of the data to the council tomorrow night as well. I just typed the website again into the chat box so that you have the website. Your commenting on this project isn't limited to these public meetings right now. If you think of something else, you want to tell us, please reach out to us via the website. You can get all our contact information there. Whether you want to ask us a question or send us information, we'd be happy to have you do that in the interim. It only helps the process. I guess that's it. Anything else? It always feels so weird to log off.
Oh, I just saw one more question slide in, Holly. Do we have time for one more, or we got to quit at some point now?
Okay. Is there a possibility of merging geofencing with iPhone delivered video or text? And I guess I'll take this one. I'll just say, yeah, there's the possibility of doing that. Again, there's also the management of those resources. And so that's where conversations between the Parks Department and the museum and how we manage the interp on the site, we'll be having those conversations. So it's a great idea and we're going to be considering it. Thank you to everyone so much. You know how to find us if you need us. Bye.